Tycoon returns with Mistress. Triplets hold hands, protecting their Mothe now. He returned the same way he had left. Confident, polished, untouchable. Or at least that's what he wanted everyone to believe. The chauffeur opened the car door, and the man stepped out. His expensive suit shimmered under the afternoon sun, his gold watch catching the light like a subtle weapon. Beside him, the mistress appeared, her long red dress hugging her figure, her chin lifted as though the world owed her reverence. She clutched his arm with the delicate sharpness of possession, and every step they took together echoed with the silent statement, "We are untouchable." But beneath the surface, a current of unease pulsed through him. As he looked around, scanning the streets of his old city, he realized it was not admiration in their eyes. It was curiosity, suspicion, even judgment. The whispers no longer fed his ego. They stung like tiny cuts against a skin he had thought invincible. He forced a smile anyway. "See," he whispered to his mistress. "They still remember me. They always will." She smirked, tilting her head so her earrings sparkled. "They remember the money, darling, not you." He said nothing. For a man who had built empires, words sometimes failed him in the simplest of moments. They walked down the plaza where fountains splashed water into the warm air, where children's laughter mixed with the sound of pigeons fluttering. He had chosen this place deliberately, public, central, a stage for his grand return. Every detail mattered. He wanted the city to see that he had not just survived, but triumphed. And yet, destiny is cruel, for it was here, in this very plaza, that his past waited for him. He didn't see her at first. She was sitting on a wooden bench, her hair pulled back neatly, her dress plain but clean. She wasn't the woman he had left years ago, dressed in silk and waiting for him at late-night dinners. Life had carved lines into her face, the kind that spoke of sleepless nights, of burdens carried alone. But her eyes, those eyes were the same. Quiet fire, unyielding strength. Beside her stood 3 children, no older than 7. Their features so strikingly familiar that his chest tightened against his will. Brown hair that caught the sunlight the same way his once had. Eyes sharp and curious, reflecting the stubborn dignity he had always carried. His own blood, multiplied threefold, standing before him like a living mirror of all that he had abandoned. He stopped walking. His mistress tugged at his arm. "What is it?" she asked, her voice sharp with annoyance. He swallowed, his mouth suddenly dry. "It's them." The woman on the bench looked up, as if some unseen force had drawn her eyes to him. For a heartbeat, time seemed to pause. The sounds of the plaza faded, leaving only the silent collision of past and present. Her gaze was steady, not shocked, not surprised, just painfully aware. She had known, perhaps, that this day would come. The mistress laughed softly, a cruel melody. "So this is the famous ex-wife?" she whispered, loud enough for the words to sting. How quaint! But before he could respond, something remarkable happened. The 3 children, sensing the shift in their mother's breath, stepped forward. They looked at him with eyes full of suspicion, then reached for each other's hands, forming a small, unbreakable chain in front of her. The boy on the left, his jaw clenched, spoke first. His voice was small, but filled with defiance. "Don't touch her." The plaza grew silent. Passers-by slowed, watching, sensing that something more than a family encounter was unfolding. The tycoon felt his heart stumble. "Don't touch her." 3 words, but sharper than any blade. He cleared his throat, forcing a calm he did not feel. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he said, his voice firm, yet uncertain. I just came back." The girl in the middle tightened her grip on her brother's hands. "Then go back where you came from," the mistress scoffed, shaking her head. "Oh, darling, look at them. So dramatic. You'd think they were guarding a queen instead of—" "Enough!" The tycoon's voice cracked through the air, silencing her. For the first time in years, authority and shame battled within him. He looked at the woman he had once called his wife. She had not moved, not spoken. She simply sat there, her hand resting gently on her lap, watching. It wasn't hatred in her eyes, no, hatred would have been easier. It was something heavier, a sorrow so deep that it no longer burned. But Wade, he began, but the words choked him. What could he say? That he had missed them? That he had been wrong? That the empire he built felt hollow without them? Words meant nothing now. The mistress tugged his sleeve impatiently. "This is pathetic," she muttered. "Let's leave these nobodies." But he couldn't move. He stood rooted in place, pierced by the gaze of 3 children who had already judged him guilty. 3 tiny hearts, united by the silent vow to protect the woman who had never failed them. In that moment, under the sunlit plaza, surrounded by strangers, the Tycoon realized that all his wealth, all his victories, all his glittering illusions were powerless against the bond of a mother and her children. And for the first time in many years, the great man felt small. Would you like me to continue with topic 2 in the same narrative style, flowing linearly with dialogue, emotions, and detailed atmosphere? So the story unfolds scene by scene? Você diz. Certo? Agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a história sem marcos com o nome de cada tópico que for desenvolve. Me conte sobre o tópico tu com dialogo como su faço espectador, sempre lembrando de desenvolver com cuidado moco. Com os sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters o ChatGPT diz. Perfect. Let's move into topic 2 now. The wife's present life, her struggles, her dignity, and how she has raised her children alone. I'll tell it as a linear, emotional narration with dialogue and atmosphere, so you can feel her reality deeply. The old apartment was small, worn by time, and smelled faintly of bread from the bakery downstairs. Its walls, cracked in places, bore witness to laughter and tears alike. Here, far from the marble halls she once knew, she had rebuilt her world piece by piece. The woman who once carried the title of a tycoon's wife now carried groceries in her arms, her steps careful up the uneven staircase. She had no servants, no chauffeurs, no grand dining halls. But she had 3 children waiting for her behind that door. And that, she reminded herself every day, was worth more than all the gold she had once touched. As she reached the landing, the door swung open before she could even set down the bags. One of the boys, his brown hair tousled, rushed out. "Mom, let me help," he said, grabbing the heavy sack from her arm. She smiled, weary but warm. "Thank you, Daniel. You're getting stronger every day." Inside, the apartment was modest but alive. The furniture was secondhand, patched and polished by her own hands, yet it felt like home. The walls were decorated with the children's drawings, bright, chaotic, full of imagination. Crayons had replaced chandeliers. Laughter had replaced luxury. The other boy, Samuel, sat at the table, his face buried in a worn-out book. He looked up as she entered. "I finished the homework early," he announced proudly. "Of course you did," she said, placing a kiss on his head. "You always want to be the first." From the corner, the girl, Sophia, rose quietly. Unlike her brothers, she carried a softness in her movements, but her eyes carried an old soul, wise beyond her years. She approached her mother, slipping her small hand into hers. "You're tired," she whispered. The woman crouched to meet her gaze. "Yes, mi amor, but it's the kind of tired I don't mind, because it's for you." For a moment, silence settled, tender and fragile. These were the moments that carried her through. The small gestures, the little voices that reminded her she was not alone, even when the nights grew long and loneliness clawed at her. Dinner that night was simple: rice, beans, and a few vegetables she had bargained for at the market. They ate around the small wooden table, talking, laughing, sometimes teasing. She watched them with quiet pride, knowing she had given them what no fortune could: resilience. But when the children finally went to bed, her strength cracked in the solitude of her room. She sat by the window looking out at the city lights. She remembered nights when she had stared out from a different window, one framed by silk curtains, overlooking manicured gardens and glittering fountains. Back then, she had waited for him, the man who had promised her eternity, the man who never came home on time, the man who one day, without warning, had left her pregnant, alone, abandoned in a world that had been built on his name. Her hands clenched against the fabric of her dress. She had begged him once, just once. She had pleaded with him to stay, for the sake of their unborn children. But his eyes, cold and detached, had told her all she needed to know. "I've made my choice," he had said, his voice sharp as glass. "You'll survive." And she had. God, she had survived. But survival had left scars no one could see. Nights when she worked 3 jobs, her body trembling with exhaustion, still rocking the crib of a crying infant. Days when hunger had gnawed at her stomach, but she smiled through it so her children would eat first. She had built her dignity from ashes, holding her head high even when the world whispered behind her back. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Mama!" She turned. Sophia stood barefoot in the doorway, her blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Why are you awake, Carino?" the mother asked gently. The girl walked over, climbing into her lap, resting her head against her chest. "I had a dream," she murmured, "that you were crying." The woman's heart clenched. Children always knew more than you wanted them to. She kissed the top of Sophia's hair, blinking back tears. "Even if I cry sometimes, it's not because I'm sad. It's because I love you all so much, and love makes the heart overflow." Sophia looked up, her eyes glistening. "We don't need him, do we?" The question cut sharper than a blade. The woman hesitated, stroking her daughter's cheek. "We need no one but each other. That's enough. Always remember that." The girl nodded, comforted, and drifted off in her arms. Later, when she tucked Sophia back into bed, the woman stood for a long moment in the doorway, watching her children breathe, their small bodies curled safely under thin blankets. She felt a swell of pride and sorrow collide in her chest. They deserved more. More than a small apartment, more than second-hand clothes, more than meals that sometimes weren't enough. But what they lacked in material wealth, she had given them in strength. And deep down, though she hated to admit it, part of her feared the day he might return. Not because she wanted him, not because she longed for his touch, but because she knew the wound he had left was not just hers. It belonged to her children too. And if he appeared before them, they would know the truth of abandonment, and no mother could shield her children from that kind of pain. She closed the door softly and whispered into the silence of the night, more to herself than to anyone else. "They are mine, and I will protect them, even from you." The city outside glowed with distant lights, but inside that small apartment, a different kind of light shone brighter. A mother's love, unyielding, defiant, eternal. And though she did not yet know it, destiny was already moving. She held the hands of her children as they walked across the square, their arms swinging with energy. Daniel carried a small paper bag of bread, proud of his task. Samuel talked endlessly about the story he had read the night before, his voice eager, his words spilling too quickly. Sophia walked quietly on the other side, her sharp eyes scanning everything, as if she were always prepared to defend her mother from unseen dangers. They were her anchor. Every step she took with them gave her strength. She had promised herself long ago never to let them feel the shadow of the man who had left them. Yet fate, cruel and merciless, had other plans. It began with the sound of polished shoes striking the stone ground. Heavy, deliberate, echoing against the air. She didn't look at first. She had trained herself to ignore ghosts, but the murmurs of people around them made her pause. A hush spread through the plaza, the kind that arrives when power enters a room. She turned, and there he was. He looked almost unchanged, broad shoulders, tailored suit, a golden watch flashing like a weapon in the sunlight. His presence drew eyes, his wealth still clinging to him like armor. But it was not him alone. On his arm was a woman, younger, painted in red silk, her smile sharp and venomous. The mistress walked like she owned the world, her hand clasped to his arm, staking her claim before the crowd. The air left her chest. For years she had imagined what it would be like to see him again. Would she tremble? Would she collapse beneath the weight of old love? But no. All she felt was a hollow ache, an old wound reopening. And behind that ache, a quiet fury. "Mom!" Daniel's voice was small. He had followed her gaze. Samuel's words faltered as he too turned to see the man in the plaza. Sophia tightened her grip on her mother's hand, sensing the danger before the others could name it. The tycoon stopped walking. For a moment, his confident stride broke. His eyes locked on the children, three faces so achingly familiar it stole his breath. His own reflection stared back at him from their small, defiant eyes. She stiffened, her jaw set, her heart hammered, but she refused to move, refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing weakness. The mistress leaned closer to him, her lips curling into a smile. "So that's her," she whispered loud enough for all nearby to hear. "The woman you left behind. She looks ordinary." A ripple of laughter moved through a few onlookers. The mother's hands clenched, but before she could speak, the children acted. Daniel stepped forward first, his chin lifted, his little fists clenched. Samuel moved beside him, his voice shaking but determined. Sophia slid between them and her mother, her small hand stretching out to hold both of her brothers. Together, they formed a wall, three small bodies, one unbreakable chain. "Don't come closer," Daniel said, his voice carrying more weight than his age should allow. The tycoon froze. Those words, sharp and fearless, pierced deeper than any insult. He opened his mouth, but no sound came. He, the man who had commanded boardrooms, silenced by his own son's defiance. The mistress laughed. "Oh, how sweet," she sneered. "Children pretending to be brave. Do you think he wants anything to do with you?" She leaned toward them, her voice dripping poison. "He's moved on. He has me. You're nothing but shadows of a past he erased." Sophia's eyes blazed. She stepped closer, her voice steady. "You can call us whatever you want, but we know who we are, and we know who she is. She's our mother, and you'll never be." A hush swept over the plaza. People had stopped to watch, drawn by the quiet battle unfolding in front of them. Strangers who didn't know their story could feel the tension, the raw truth pressing against the air. The tycoon's chest tightened. He wanted to say something, anything, to take back control. His voice finally broke through, rough and uncertain. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just..." His gaze flickered to the woman he had abandoned. "I came back." Samuel shook his head, his voice trembling with rage. "Then go back again. We don't need you." The words sliced through him. His pride, his armor of wealth and power, crumbled under the gaze of the children he had never raised. His mistress tugged at his sleeve impatiently, her smile brittle now. "Let's go," she hissed. "This is pathetic." But he couldn't move. His feet were cemented to the ground, his soul anchored by regret he could no longer bury. He looked at her, the woman he had once promised eternity. She had not spoken, had not risen from her bench, but her silence screamed louder than any words. Her eyes met his. They were not filled with rage, nor with longing. They carried a sorrow so deep it hollowed him. The sorrow of a woman who had carried everything he had abandoned, and yet stood unbroken. The plaza seemed to breathe with her. People were no longer whispering. They were staring at him, their judgment burning against his skin. He was not the triumphant conqueror he had imagined. He was a man confronted by his own reflection, and that reflection showed him a coward. The mistress hissed again, "Enough of this!" But for once, his voice, low and broken, silenced her. He started, but the words caught in his throat. He reached a hand out, hesitant, toward the children. "Please!" The chain of little hands only tightened. 3 pairs of eyes burned with one truth. He was not welcome. And in that moment, beneath the blazing sun, before the watchful eyes of strangers, the mighty tycoon discovered what power could never buy back: respect, forgiveness, family. For the first time in years, he felt small. Smaller than the children who stood against him. Smaller than the woman who, without words, showed him she no longer needed him. He didn't respond immediately. His chest heaved, each breath a struggle against the sudden, unfamiliar weight of shame. Pride, that unyielding armor he had worn for decades, felt like a fragile veneer cracking under the heat of sunlight. And scrutiny. The people in the plaza were still watching. Strangers, mothers with children of their own, business people who had recognized him, old acquaintances whose whispers now carried judgment instead of admiration. Every pair of eyes burned into him, reminding him that wealth could not protect him from the consequences of his past. "They don't want you here," the mistress spat, her voice louder now, enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Do you hear them? They're mocking you." He looked at the children again. Daniel's jaw was tight, Samuel's eyes gleaming with cautious fire, and Sophia's stance firm and unyielding. They weren't mocking him. They were defending their mother, defending what he had once abandoned. He swallowed hard, the sound loud to his own ears. "I didn't come here to fight," he said, his voice shaking despite his attempt at calm. He paused, searching for words that felt impossibly distant. "I just wanted to see them, to see you." The mistress rolled her eyes, her lips pressed into a thin, contemptuous line. "See them? See her? You left them. You left her. How dare you even think you can waltz in and reclaim a place here?" Her words hit like a slap. He flinched, his hand tightening into a fist at his side. She was right. He had left. He had walked away from a life he now realized had been more than money or power. It had been love. He had abandoned them, believing wealth and influence could replace human connection. And now, years later, standing in the open plaza, he realized the enormity of what he had lost. The woman, the mother of his children, stepped forward slightly. Her voice, calm yet unwavering, cut through the tension. "You're here. That is true. But do not think that a few steps into this plaza erase years of absence. You are not welcome, and neither is she." The mistress gasped in outrage. "How dare you?" "I said enough," the woman continued, her eyes meeting his for a fraction of a second. That brief contact carried a weight heavier than any boardroom verdict or financial collapse. It was a silent reminder that she had survived without him, that she had raised their children with courage and love that money could never buy. The tycoon's throat tightened. He wanted to argue, to assert himself, to remind everyone of who he was, what he had built, what he had accomplished. But none of it mattered here, not in the presence of the 3 children who had been his legacy and his punishment. Daniel stepped forward again, gripping his mother's hand tightly. "Go away," he said firmly. "We don't need you," Samuel added, his voice trembling but resolute. "You hurt her. You left her. You're not part of our family." Sophia's eyes flashed, her small hand tightening around her brother's. "You're not welcome here, and don't think we'll ever forget what you did." The words were like arrows striking his chest. The weight of their truth, their unwavering loyalty to their mother, pressed down on him. He had expected confrontation. He had expected anger. But not this unyielding, unshakable protection of the woman he had wronged and the children who had been his life. The crowd around them was growing. People had stopped to watch the drama unfold, some whispering, some shaking their heads, others murmuring sympathy. No longer was it just a personal encounter. It had become a public reckoning. The mistress hissed again, her voice trembling with frustration and fear. "You are ridiculous. Do you see this? Everyone is staring at us. This is humiliating." He finally turned to her, his eyes dark and unreadable. "Do you hear them? Look at them." He gestured toward the children. "They're not afraid. They're not impressed by what I have. They have something you never will: love, loyalty, family, something you'll never understand." Her face twisted in fury. "How dare you?" He cut her off, his voice low but steady, commanding attention even as it betrayed the tremor of fear and shame beneath. "You can't control this. You never could. And you never will." The mistress recoiled, her composure cracking. She could no longer maintain the image of dominance she had clung to, not in the presence of 3 children who radiated courage and one woman whose eyes had endured the impossible. For a moment, The plaza was silent, as if the world itself were holding its breath. The mother looked at her children, each one a living testament to survival and love. She could see the defiance in their faces, the unwavering loyalty that had kept them together through years of absence, hunger, and fear. The Tycoon looked at them, and something inside him twisted, a mix of shame, longing, and the bitter taste of regret. He had imagined he could return and be received with open arms, that wealth and influence would smooth over the scars of his abandonment. But he had underestimated the strength of the bond he had destroyed. He looked at the woman, standing tall, unbroken, and realized that everything he had built, everything he had gained, was meaningless if he could not earn their respect, or, more painfully, if he could not even reclaim the smallest piece of their trust. The mistress, finally seeing the futility of her presence, released his arm. Her eyes darted nervously to the crowd, to the children, to the woman who had survived everything he had left behind. "This isn't over," she spat, though her voice was quieter now, edged with fear. "Not by a long shot." He said nothing. His pride had been shattered in seconds, and beneath it, a quiet, gnawing fear began to grow. A fear that he might have lost more than time, that the very thing he had abandoned could never be regained. The children, still holding hands, turned back toward their mother. The woman's chest rose and fell slowly, her heartbeat steady but her mind racing. She knew this was only the beginning. He had returned, yes, but what did that mean for them? What dangers lay ahead now that the man who had once been their world was standing at their door again? For the first time in many years, the mother, the children, and even the Tycoon all felt the same tension, the same suspense, as if the entire plaza had become a stage for a story none of them could predict. The Tycoon finally took a step back. His eyes never left the children. I will make this right," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. But even as the words left his lips, he knew it would not be simple. Trust, once broken, is not easily repaired. And here, in the open plaza, surrounded by witnesses, he faced the first taste of consequences he could no longer ignore. The mistress grabbed his arm once more, but he shook her off. He no longer cared what she thought, what the world whispered. His attention was fixed on the woman he had abandoned and the children who refused to let him back in. "You really think this makes you strong?" the mistress snapped, her voice carrying across the plaza. "Standing there with 3 children? Pathetic. He could erase all of you in a second, and you'd still have nowhere to run." The mother's eyes never wavered, calm, unshakable, yet beneath the surface a storm simmered. "You think wealth and arrogance give you power over us?" she said, her voice steady but filled with an intensity that silenced the murmurs of onlookers. "You left us, you abandoned us, and yet here you are, thinking you can intimidate 3 children and a woman who survived your absence. You are mistaken." The mistress's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Oh, she's clever, isn't she? Clever enough to make me feel uneasy." She turned her sharp gaze to the Tycoon. "Do you see this? This is the family you left behind. Do you really want to face the consequences now?" He felt the weight of her words, but it was nothing compared to the silent judgment in the eyes of his children. They were small, yes, but their gaze was sharper than any business boardroom he had ever dominated. Daniel's jaw was set, Samuel's eyes ablaze with defiance, Sophia's grip on their hands firm and protective. The chain they formed was more than physical. It was a symbol of loyalty, courage, and the undeniable love of a mother. He started, but his voice faltered. The words he had imagined saying, the ones that would assert control, seemed inadequate now. They were 3 little humans who had lived and thrived without him, who had survived because of her, not because of him. His heart twisted with regret. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said finally, voice low, almost a whisper, yet carrying enough weight to reach her ears. "You never wanted to hurt us?" The mother's voice was calm, almost eerily so, but it carried a sharp edge that made him flinch. "Do you even remember the nights we cried alone? The fear I felt carrying your children without your protection? Do you remember the promises you broke? Her words struck like thunder. He closed his eyes for a moment, images of sleepless nights and empty promises flooding him. The mansion, the cars, the wealth. It all seemed hollow now, a cruel mockery of what he had lost. I made mistakes, he admitted finally, each word heavy with shame. I thought I was doing what was best. I was wrong. The mistress huffed, stepping closer, her voice dripping with contempt. Wrong? You call abandoning a family wrong? You think an apology can erase years of absence and neglect? Pathetic. The children shuffled instinctively, their small hands tightening in unison. Sophia spoke first, her voice trembling but resolute. You left us. You chose her over our mother, over us. And now you come here expecting, what? Forgiveness? Respect. Daniel chimed in, stepping slightly forward. We don't need you. You're not part of our family. And don't think we'll ever forget what you did. Samuel added, his voice cracking with emotion but no less fierce. You're nothing to us. You were never here when we needed you. And now it's too late. He felt his chest tighten, each word a dagger. His pride, his carefully constructed image of invincibility, crumbled under the weight of truth. This was not about wealth, not about influence, not about power. It was about something he could never buy, something he had squandered. Family, trust, love. The mistress stepped back, her confidence faltering as the reality of the scene hit her. She had counted on fear and dominance to control him, to manipulate the situation. But here, before a growing crowd, it was his own failure that left him vulnerable. You see, the mother said softly, but each word carried the weight of years. You can have your empire, your money, your power, but you cannot have what we built together without you. He looked at her, at the three children holding hands like a fortress, and for the first time he realized the depth of what he had lost. He wanted to reach out, to hold them, to apologize, to reclaim what he thought was his. But how could he? Words had failed him once, and now they seemed powerless against the fortress of their trust in each other and in her. The crowd murmured, some in awe, some in judgment. This was more than a family dispute. It was a public reckoning. He had returned thinking his presence alone could command respect. He had underestimated them, her resilience, the children's loyalty, and the truth that love cannot be forced, cannot be bought, cannot be demanded. The mistress hissed again, but her voice sounded small, powerless. We should leave. This is humiliating. He didn't move immediately. Something inside him had shifted, though he could not yet name it. Shame, yes. Regret, yes. But deeper than both was an awareness he had never felt, that he had been absent for too long, and that absence had consequences he could no longer ignore. The mother stepped forward slightly, her voice firm yet calm. If you want to stay in our lives, it will not be on your terms. And it will not be easy. You will have to earn respect, prove that you are not the man who abandoned us. Until then, step back. The children mirrored her, their small forms standing tall and unwavering. They had learned early, through hardship, that love is not given to those who have failed. They had learned to protect the person who mattered most. And now, before the man who had left them, they demonstrated that lesson with courage far beyond their years. He felt something he had not felt in a long time. Powerless. The mistress's grip on his arm faltered, and he realized she had lost control as well. He was exposed, stripped bare of the illusions of power and invincibility that had carried him through life. And yet, beneath that shame, a faint spark of resolve began to stir. He would have to confront his failures, face the reality of what he had lost, and somehow, if he could, begin to earn back even a fragment of what mattered. But for now, all he could do was stand there, feeling the weight of three small hands, one mother's unwavering gaze, and the truth he could no longer deny. He was not welcome here. The memory of the plaza haunted him. The children's hands joined together, their mother standing strong, their defiance cutting through him like a cold blade. He had imagined returning and seeing admiration in their eyes, or at least fear that would command their respect. Instead, he had been met with rejection, and it had shattered something deep inside him. something he had never expected to feel. He leaned against the side of a building, taking a deep breath. His fingers traced the edge of his expensive watch, but even its weight seemed meaningless now. "I never understood," he muttered, voice low, almost to himself. "I never understood how much I was giving up." The mistress, trailing slightly behind, frowned, her sharp heels clicking against the stones. "You can't let them see weakness," she said, her voice tight. "Stand tall. Remember who you are." He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "Who I am?" he echoed, more to himself than to her. "I'm the man who abandoned my family, the man who thought money could replace love. I'm the man who lost the most important thing in his life and doesn't even know how to get it back." She looked at him incredulously. "You lost? You have everything. Money, power, influence." "Not them," he said sharply, eyes dark. "I have nothing if I can't hold them. If they hate me, if they never forgive me, what is anything worth?" The mistress faltered, unsure how to respond. She had never seen him like this, so raw, so exposed. Her confidence, carefully built over months of manipulation, suddenly seemed fragile in the face of his shame. He continued walking, the city around him a blur. His mind raced with memories, guilt, and longing. He had left when he was young, thinking ambition would define his life. He had chased wealth, power, indulgence. And in doing so, he had abandoned the woman who had loved him most fiercely, the children who carried pieces of his own soul. "I didn't see it before," he whispered to the empty streets, voice heavy. "I didn't see what I was destroying. I didn't see their hearts or mine." The mistress grabbed his arm again, frustrated. "You're wallowing. People will see this. You have to fight. You have to show dominance. That's what men like us do." He pulled his arm free, his gaze hard, though edged with sorrow. "I'm done fighting for appearances. That fight cost me everything that mattered. Look at them. They don't need me. And yet, I can't stop wanting them. I can't stop needing to make this right." Her lips pressed into a tight line. "You think an apology will fix this? A few words and they'll forget all the years you were gone." He shook his head slowly, a bitter smile forming. "No, it won't be enough. Nothing will. I'll have to earn their trust. Every day, every moment. I'll have to prove that I'm not the same man who left them behind." Her expression faltered, the conviction she had relied upon weakening. "And if you fail?" she asked quietly, almost as if she didn't want to hear the answer. He stopped walking, his chest tight, heart pounding. "Then I'll have to live with it. I'll have to face the consequences of my actions, even if it means never seeing them again. But I can't walk away. Not this time. Not when they're right there, waiting, even if they don't know it yet." The city seemed to hold its breath as he continued down the street, the memories pressing around him like walls. He could still hear Daniel's voice, commanding, defiant. Samuel's trembling but unwavering words. Sophia's protective, fearless gaze. The weight of their rejection, the weight of their loyalty to their mother. It all pressed against him, reminding him that money and power had never been enough. At a small cafe, he stopped, leaning against a railing and staring at the people passing by. Mothers with children, couples walking hand in hand, old friends laughing together. Each scene reminded him of what he had taken for granted, what he had sacrificed in pursuit of ambition. He had thought wealth could replace love, but now he realized that love, genuine, unwavering love, was the only thing that could fill the emptiness inside him. "I can't let them go," he whispered again, the words barely audible. "I can't, not anymore." The mistress's voice was sharp, cutting through the quiet. "You're obsessed. This isn't life. This is madness." "No," he said firmly, turning to her, his eyes blazing with determination and pain. "It's reality. The reality I created when I left them. And now I have to face it." They continued walking, the air heavy with tension. Each step reminded him of the plaza, of the children's hands linked together, of the woman who had survived without him. Every memory was a hammer against his pride, but also a guide, showing him what mattered most. The city stretched out before him, bright and indifferent, yet every corner held reminders of the life he had lost. The laughter of children, the soft greetings of neighbors, the smell of fresh bread, it all reminded him of what he had abandoned. And the more he walked, the more he felt the gnawing need to reclaim, to repair, to somehow find a way back to them. But he also knew it wouldn't be easy. The woman he had abandoned was not naive. The children were not forgiving, and the world was watching. Every step forward would be measured, tested, scrutinized. Every gesture, every word would be under judgment. And yet, despite the fear, despite the shame, he felt a flicker of hope. "I have to try," he whispered again, voice thick. "I have to try before it's too late." The mistress followed silently, realizing that her control over him had slipped entirely. He was no longer the man who had flaunted wealth and power. He was a man stripped bare by regret, driven by the unyielding force of love and the desire to reclaim what he had lost. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that the true battle had only just begun. Not against her, not against the world, but against himself. Against the choices he had made, the years he had wasted, and the consequences that now stood before him, waiting in the form of a mother and her 3 children who would not yield, no matter how much he begged, pleaded, or tried to command them. He remembered the day he had left. It had been early morning, the sky pale and the air cold. The house, once alive with laughter and warmth, had felt suffocating to him. He had believed he was escaping responsibility, chasing ambition, seeking freedom. But the look on her face, the tearful eyes of the woman he had promised to protect, haunted him even now. "You'll be fine," he had said, his voice distant, practiced, convincing himself as much as her. "I'm doing this for us, for our future." Her eyes had been wide, a storm of fear and confusion and hurt all at once. "For our future?" she had whispered. "And what about me? What about them? The children?" He had avoided her gaze, unable to meet the storm of emotion she carried. I have to do this," he said, his tone final, cold. And with that, he had walked away. He remembered the silence after the door closed, the small whimpers of a child in the next room, the sharp intake of breath from her lips. He had told himself it was temporary, that he would return. But he had not. Now, standing in the dimming light, he could feel the weight of those choices pressing against him like a physical force. Every smile, every bedtime story, every scraped knee he had missed came rushing back in a wave of regret, so intense it made his knees weak. He remembered Daniel's first steps, Samuel's first words, Sophia's first laugh, and he had not been there. The milestones that every father treasures, every moment of discovery, had passed without him. And worse, he realized that he had not just missed moments. He had missed building trust, being present, being a protector. The mistress's voice intruded again, sharp and clipped, cutting through his memories. "You're haunted, aren't you? By all the things you can't undo." He didn't answer immediately. Her words were true, but they were nothing new. "I am haunted," he admitted finally, voice low, almost a confession. "Every day, every night, by their faces, their small hands, by the knowledge that I left them when they needed me most." "You could have chosen differently," she said, a mixture of scorn and disbelief in her tone. "You could have stayed. You could have made her love you again." He shook his head, bitter laughter escaping him. "You don't understand. Love isn't about control. It's not about money or power or making someone depend on you. I left thinking I could give them a better life. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. So wrong." Her eyes narrowed. "So now what? You think your guilt is enough? That somehow you can fix this by showing up and begging forgiveness?" He paused, the fading light painting shadows across his face. "No," he said softly. "It's not enough. It will never be enough. I have to earn it, every single day. Not by words, not by money, but by showing them I am not the man who abandoned them." He thought of the children again. Daniel's defiance, Samuel's cautious fire, Sophia's protective courage. Their mother, standing tall, carrying them through years of struggle, and yet, still open, still willing to confront him. They were his challenge, his punishment, and his path to redemption all at once. "They don't owe me anything," he whispered, "and I don't deserve anything from them. But I can't just walk away anymore." The mistress scoffed. "You're obsessed. This isn't real life. You're chasing ghosts." "No," he said, turning to her with eyes blazing, though filled with sorrow, determination, and fear. "This is real. This is the only thing that matters. Not my empire, not my wealth, not you. Them. Always them. I failed once. I cannot fail again." The evening deepened, shadows stretching across the streets. He walked in silence for a moment, thinking of how he could approach her, how he could show the children that he had changed. But even as he planned, he knew it would not be simple. Trust could not be commanded. It had to be rebuilt. Respect could not be demanded. It had to be earned. And love had to survive wounds deeper than he had ever imagined. He thought of the plaza again, the small hands gripping each other, the mother's unbroken stance. He could still feel their gaze, unwavering, penetrating, and impossible to ignore. It was a gaze that condemned him, yet offered a path forward if he had the courage to walk it. "I have to find a way," he whispered to the night, voice trembling. "I have to show them, not with words, but with my actions. Every day, every choice, every sacrifice. I have to prove I am worthy of them." He thought of the mistress again, her impatience, her arrogance, her attempts to control the situation. But her presence was now irrelevant. His focus had narrowed to one truth. He had to face the consequences of his absence, and he had to do it without shortcuts, without illusions, without relying on anything but himself and his determination to make amends. The city seemed to hold its breath around him, the hum of distant traffic and laughter a muted soundtrack to the storm of his thoughts. And in that quiet, he began to see the road ahead. Not easy, not assured, but real. Every step would be tested, every gesture measured, every interaction scrutinized. But he knew he could not turn back. "They'll judge me," he whispered, "and they should. I deserve their judgment. I only hope they will let me show them I can change, that I can be a father, that I can be someone they can trust." The wind blew softly through the streets, carrying the scent of bread and the distant sound of children playing. He closed his eyes for a moment, drawing strength from the thought that the family he had abandoned was still there, still alive, still whole. They were the reason he had returned, the reason he could no longer ignore the consequences of his choices, the reason he would fight to reclaim what he had lost. Not as a tycoon, not as a man of power, but as a father. He stood near the corner of the street where he knew they would pass. His chest tightened as he adjusted his collar nervously, a foreign gesture for a man who had once exuded untouchable confidence. His hands trembled slightly. It wasn't fear of the world's judgment. It was the fear of facing them again, of seeing rejection written on their faces once more. The mother appeared first, walking steadily, her head held high. She carried a bag on one shoulder, her steps purposeful, though there was a weariness in her posture that spoke of years of carrying burdens alone. Beside her, the children walked hand in hand, as they always seemed to. Daniel tall and protective, Samuel clinging to his brother, Sophia in the middle, her chin lifted like a little guardian who had inherited her mother's strength. He stepped forward before he could stop himself. His voice cracked slightly as he spoke. "Good morning." The mother froze. The children immediately drew closer to her, their hands tightening, their gazes sharp. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Why are you here?" he demanded, his tone fierce despite his youth. "I wanted—" The tycoon swallowed hard, the words fighting to escape. "I wanted to see you, to see all of you." Samuel's voice was quiet, almost trembling, but it cut like a blade. "You already saw us yesterday. Isn't that enough?" The words lodged in his chest. He forced himself to kneel, lowering himself so his gaze was level with theirs. It was humbling, exposing. His expensive suit brushed against the dust of the street, but he didn't care. "It will never be enough," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "I know I don't deserve to be here. I know I don't deserve your trust. But I want to try." Sophia tilted her head, her small voice piercing the silence. Why now? After all this time? Her innocence, her bravery, it shattered him. He struggled to steady his voice. "Because I was blind. I thought I was giving you something by leaving. I thought my success would mean something. But I was wrong. I see that now. And I can't undo it, but I want to make it right, if you'll let me." The mother finally spoke, her tone sharp but calm. "Words. Always words. Where were you when Daniel had nightmares in the middle of the night? When Samuel fell and scraped his knee and cried for a father he didn't know? When Sophia begged me to tell her why her father was gone?" His throat closed, shame choking him. "I wasn't there," he whispered, the admission tasting bitter. "And that is my sin. I will carry it all my life. But let me show you." His voice cracked. "Please, let me show you that I can be different." Daniel stepped forward, his small chest rising and falling quickly. "You don't get to just show up and say you're different. Do you think we can just forget? Do you think we can trust you because you suddenly want to?" The Tycoon lowered his head, his hands trembling as he pressed them to the ground, bowing slightly. The action startled even the Mistress, who lingered in the shadows nearby, glaring but silent. "No," he said, "I don't expect you to forget, and I don't expect trust. I only ask for a chance. Not forgiveness. Just the chance to prove I can be more than the man who hurt you." The mother's lips pressed into a thin line. Her eyes glistened, though her voice remained steady. "A chance? Do you think chances are free? Do you think we haven't paid enough already for your choices?" He raised his head slowly, meeting her gaze with raw desperation. "I know you paid. You paid every day. And I..." His voice broke. "I don't deserve it, but I'm begging anyway." The silence stretched, the weight of his words lingering. Passers-by glanced curiously, sensing the tension, but none dared to intrude. The children looked at each other, their little faces conflicted, torn between anger and the unspoken yearning every child feels for a father's presence. Samuel finally whispered, so softly it was almost lost, "If you hurt her again, if you hurt us again, we'll never forgive you." Tears stung his eyes as he nodded fiercely. "I won't. I swear I won't. If it takes the rest of my life, I'll prove it." The mother remained silent, her gaze heavy, calculating. She could see the cracks in him, the shame, the regret, the desperate need. And though she hated herself for it, a part of her heart trembled, remembering the man he once had been before ambition poisoned everything. "Come," she said finally, her voice clipped, almost reluctant. "But stay behind us. Do not think this means trust. Do not think this means forgiveness. It means only that for now, I will allow you to walk near your children." He exhaled, relief and pain mingling in his chest. He nodded, humbled. "Thank you," he whispered. The children didn't move closer. Their hands stayed, tightly clasped, their little bodies pressed against their mother. But they allowed him to walk a few steps behind, their wary glances flicking back at him, testing, watching. Each step was agony for him. He longed to reach out, to hold their hands, to feel their warmth. But he knew he couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. This was their choice, their power, and he would have to respect it. As they walked, the mistress hissed under her breath, her anger sharp. "You're humiliating yourself. Begging like this, following like a stray dog. They'll never accept you." He turned his head slightly, his expression fierce despite the tears in his eyes. "Then I'll follow forever if I must. Better a stray dog behind them than a king in an empty palace." The mother's step faltered for just a moment at those words, though she quickly regained her composure. The children glanced at each other, uncertain, and as they continued down the street, the fragile thread of something new, uncertain, painful, but undeniably alive, began to weave itself into the fragile tapestry of their fractured lives. Daniel, ever the boldest, finally spoke, his voice sharp. "Why are you even walking with us? You don't belong here." He stopped, letting the weight of his gaze meet Daniel's. "I know I don't belong," he admitted, his voice low, almost pained. "I know I failed you, but I want to be here, even if it's just a step behind, even if it's just to watch and listen. I want to try to be part of your lives again." Samuel's small voice trembled as he added, "And why should we believe you? You left. You promised to come back and you didn't." "I know," he said, swallowing hard. "I was wrong. I was foolish and blind. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. I have no excuse, only this. I want to make it right, somehow. Not by words alone, but by being here, by showing you that I can be trusted, that I can be a father." Sophia, her eyes narrowed, took a tentative step forward. "And if you hurt us again?" Her voice was trembling, small but filled with a courage that made him flinch. "I won't," he said immediately, the intensity in his voice betraying the desperate sincerity he felt. "I swear to you, I will never hurt you again. Not with words, not with actions, not by leaving. I am here, and I will stay here for you." The mother's voice cut through the tension, firm and unwavering. "Words are cheap. Actions matter. You think just following us proves anything? You think saying you won't hurt them again makes it true? You have to show it. Every day. Every moment." He nodded, chest tight with a mix of shame and determination. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes." They continued walking, the children maintaining their small, unyielding barrier. Daniel glanced back, suspicion lingering, but there was a flicker of something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or a reluctant acknowledgement that he had remained close, that he had not turned his back when he could have. As they turned a corner, a small commotion broke out ahead. A younger boy had tripped and fallen in the street, scraping his knee badly. He cried out, the sound sharp and piercing. Instinctively, the mother moved forward to comfort him, but her bag slipped from her shoulder, spilling items across the cobblestones. Without thinking, the Tycoon stepped forward. His hands were trembling slightly, but his movements were fast and precise. He knelt next to the boy, carefully checking the scrape. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice gentle. "It's going to be all right." Daniel, Samuel, and Sophia watched with wide eyes. The mother froze, her heart caught between shock and caution. This was the first act he had done not for himself, not for appearances, but to help someone vulnerable. The boy sniffled and nodded, trying to be brave. I think so." "Good," the Tycoon said, offering a clean tissue from his pocket to stop the bleeding. "Here, this will help. You're very brave." The mother's gaze softened slightly, though she still maintained her guarded stance. "Why are you helping him?" she asked quietly, more to herself than to him. "Because it's right," he said simply, his voice steady, filled with a quiet determination. "Because I want to help when I can, instead of leaving when I should be present." The children's eyes flickered between him and the boy. Sophia's small hand shifted slightly, breaking their linked barrier just enough that he noticed. Daniel's jaw tightened, but there was no step backward. Samuel's small hand trembled as he adjusted his grip on Sophia's, but his eyes lingered on the Tycoon, watching carefully. The boy smiled faintly. "Thank you, mister," he whispered. The mother finally spoke, her voice still cautious but edged with acknowledgement. "Actions speak louder than words. You see that now?" He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I see it, and I will keep showing it, every day, if you let me." The children remained silent, their hands still clasped, but there was a subtle shift. Their eyes, once purely guarded, now flickered with something new. A tentative assessment, weighing his sincerity. The mother kept a close eye on him, her stance protective, but even she could not deny the first real step he had taken toward redemption. The mistress, lingering behind, hissed under her breath, frustration evident. "A single act doesn't change anything. You're still vulnerable, still exposed." He didn't reply, his attention fixed entirely on the children. He knew she was right. This was only the beginning. Every gesture from now on would be scrutinized. Every word weighed against the memory of his absence. He had no illusions that it would be easy. Daniel finally spoke again, voice low but steady. "We'll be watching." "We always are," Samuel added, small but resolute. Sophia, holding both of their hands, said softly, "And if you lie or hurt her, we'll know. Always." He nodded, feeling the full weight of their words, of their distrust, of the fragile thread of connection he was trying desperately to weave. "I won't lie, I won't hurt her, and I won't leave. I swear it." The mother's eyes softened for a fraction of a second, and the children's glances flickered with a cautious, almost imperceptible shift. It was tiny, nearly invisible, but it was there, the first crack in the barrier, the first opening for him to begin rebuilding what he had destroyed. They continued walking, the boy he had helped now running ahead with newfound confidence, laughing softly. The mother and children moved together, cautious but steady, and he followed, each step heavy with the knowledge that this was not yet trust, not yet forgiveness, but the beginning of a fragile journey. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. Mistakes could undo everything. But in that moment, he had acted not for wealth, not for power, not to impress, but simply to do what was right. And that, he realized, was the foundation he had been missing all these years. He whispered to himself, barely audible over the hum of the city, "Step by step, I will earn them back, one step at a time." The plaza was alive with activity. Vendors calling out their wares, the scent of roasted coffee and fresh bread mingling in the air, and the chatter of families and tourists moving past. And then, as if the world had conspired to test him, he saw her, the mistress, emerging from the crowd, wearing her carefully orchestrated air of superiority, flanked by two friends who seemed more like bodyguards than companions. "You really think following them makes you a father?" she called out, her voice carrying over the plaza. "Do you think they'll ever accept someone like you? Someone who abandoned them? Pathetic." His heart hammered, and his hands clenched involuntarily. He wanted to respond sharply, to regain control, but he had learned that this was not a battle of words or dominance. This was about earning trust, about showing the children that he had changed. He drew a deep breath, steadying himself, and said quietly, "I don't care what you think. I care about them." The mistress's lips curled into a cruel smile. "You care? You care? You've been gone for years. Care? That's not enough. You think a few gestures and some hollow words can erase the past? You're deluding yourself." The mother stopped abruptly, planting herself between him and the approaching threat. Her eyes blazed with a mixture of anger and protection. "Stay back," she said, voice firm, carrying an authority that silenced even the bustling crowd around them. "You have no right to confront us here. This is between him and his family, not you." The mistress laughed bitterly. "Family? You mean her family, the one he abandoned? Please, don't act like you're the moral center of this universe." Daniel stepped forward, his small chest rising with defiance. "She's right. You have no place here." His voice cracked slightly, but there was no hesitation. "This is ours, not yours." Samuel moved close to his brother, his hand gripping Sophia's. "We're not afraid of you," he added, voice quiet but resolute. Sophia, in the middle, held both their hands tightly, eyes blazing. "Stay away. You're not welcome. And if you touch him or us, you'll regret it." The mistress sneered, stepping closer. "You think you're brave? You're just children. A woman protecting her little family. This is nothing. I'm the one he chose over all of you once, and I can do it again." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. Anger flared, but he forced it down. He would not fight for dominance. He would fight for them. He took a small step forward, letting the children see him clearly, showing he was willing to stand in front of them, shielding them. "You will not," he said, his voice low, controlled but carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "You will not threaten them. Not today. Not ever again. If you want to stay, it will be at your own peril, and I will protect them. I am their father, and I will not allow anyone to harm them, in word or deed." The mistress's face twisted with fury. You think standing there makes you strong? You think protecting them from me makes you a man? You're weak, always weak. He didn't respond with anger. Instead, he took a deliberate breath, his gaze never leaving hers, and spoke calmly, with conviction that surprised even him. No, I'm not weak. I am the man who stands up now, who owns his failures, and who will fight for what he abandoned. Not for pride, not for ego, for them, always them. The mother's eyes softened fractionally, but she did not lower her guard. She had seen words like these before, and she knew that only actions mattered. The children's grips on each other loosened slightly, small cracks in the protective wall they had built, but they did not move forward. They were wary, but they were watching, an acknowledgement that he had begun to change. The mistress, sensing that her power was slipping, hissed through her teeth. "You're pathetic," she spat, turning to leave, her pride injured, but he didn't follow her. He remained planted firmly, his gaze returning immediately to the children, to their mother, to the fragile thread of trust he was starting to weave. Daniel's voice broke the tense silence. "Father, we're watching. Every move you make, every word you say, we'll see if you mean it." "I know," he said softly, his heart tightening, "and I will prove it, every day if you let me." Samuel and Sophia looked at him, hesitant but quietly intrigued by his determination. The mother's stance relaxed just a fraction, and the world around them resumed its rhythm, as if acknowledging this small but significant victory. A confrontation survived, a step taken, a challenge faced not with anger or arrogance, but with courage and sincerity. The Tycoon felt something shift inside him. Fear was still there, yes, fear of rejection, fear of failing again, but beneath it was a spark of determination, a fierce commitment he had never known before. Every step he had taken, every word he had spoken, had led to this moment. The mistress had tried to dominate, to manipulate, to assert her presence, and yet he had survived, not by force, not by wealth, but by standing firm in his conviction to protect the children, to honor the family he had once abandoned. The mother finally spoke, voice quiet but firm. "This is only the beginning. You've shown courage, but don't mistake it for trust. That must be earned." He nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and humility. "I understand, and I will earn it, every day if I must." The children shifted slightly, still holding hands, still guarded, but something had changed. He was no longer invisible to them. He was no longer a distant figure. He was present, acting in ways that words alone could never convey. And in that fragile, tense moment, he realized that the battle for their hearts had begun, and that it would take every ounce of patience, humility, and courage he possessed to succeed. And as the mistress disappeared into the crowd, muttering bitterly, he stayed planted, shoulders square, eyes focused, heart pounding with the weight of what he had to prove. That he could be the father they needed, the man they had once lost, and the protector they had never had. He whispered to himself, voice steady despite the storm inside. "This is the moment I begin again. Not for me, not for her, but for them. I will not fail again." The mother led them toward a quiet park, a place where the children often played after school. The path was narrow, winding, shaded by old trees whose leaves whispered in the evening breeze. He followed silently, his mind calculating every possible misstep, every word that could undo the fragile progress he had made. Daniel stopped near the entrance of the park, his eyes scanning for anything unusual. "We stay together," he said firmly, glancing back at him. "No one separates us. Not you, not anyone else." "I wouldn't dream of it," he said, his voice low, heavy with sincerity. "I only want to be here with you in whatever way you'll allow." Samuel, holding tightly to Sophia's hand, added quietly, "And you can't leave again, not ever. We'll know if you do." "I understand," he said immediately. "I won't leave. Not now, not ever. I swear it." Sophia, ever cautious, tilted her head and studied him for a long moment before asking, "Then, why do you want to be with us, after all the years?" He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every year lost pressing on him. Because, he said softly, voice trembling, I was blind. I didn't see what I had. I thought success, money, power, that they would mean something. But they didn't. Not compared to you. Not compared to your mother. I left thinking I was protecting you, but I was destroying everything. And I can't undo it. I can only try to be here now. To protect you, to support you, to love you in the way I should have all along. The mother's gaze softened slightly, though her voice remained cautious. Love isn't words, it's actions. You're going to have to prove it every single day if you want them to trust you again. I will, he said firmly, determination coursing through him. Every day, every moment. I'll earn it if they let me. They reached the small playground, where swings swayed gently in the breeze. Daniel immediately ran toward the climbing structure, still cautious, still testing. Samuel lingered close to his mother, and Sophia observed the swings with careful calculation, her small hands gripping the chain-link fence as if measuring his intentions. He stepped forward slowly, holding out a small ball he had picked up from a nearby vendor. I thought, maybe we could play, he said quietly, trying to keep his voice calm, steady. If you want. Daniel stopped mid-climb, narrowing his eyes. You expect us to just play with you? I don't expect anything, he replied softly. I'm offering. If you don't want to, that's fine. But if you do, I'll be here. No tricks, no games, just playing. There was a long pause. The mother watched carefully, her stance protective but cautious. Finally, Daniel glanced at his siblings and slowly nodded. Samuel's small hand tightened on Sophia's, but she stepped forward, releasing her brother's hand just enough to reach for the ball. He smiled softly, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through him. Good, that's a start, he said gently, tossing the ball lightly to Sophia. She caught it, her fingers trembling slightly, and for a moment, their eyes met. In her gaze, he saw a mix of caution, curiosity, and the smallest flicker of hope. The game began slowly, tentative at first. He threw the ball gently, careful not to overwhelm them. Each catch, each toss was a test, a fragile negotiation of trust. Daniel's movements remained sharp, watchful, protective of his siblings, while Samuel's cautious engagement betrayed both fear and tentative curiosity. Sophia, ever the mediator, began to relax slightly, her small hands gripping the ball with growing confidence. Not too fast, Daniel muttered, his tone still skeptical. We're not used to this. I know, he said softly, keeping his voice gentle. We'll take it slow as you need. Minutes passed, each moment heavy with the weight of what was being rebuilt. He could feel their walls slowly shifting, the small openings that might one day allow him to be part of their lives again. Each smile, each tentative laugh, was a victory more precious than any business deal he had ever secured. At one point, the ball rolled toward a puddle, and he moved instinctively, kneeling to retrieve it. His suit brushed against the mud, but he didn't care. He handed it back to Daniel, whose expression softened fractionally, a subtle acknowledgement that the man before him was different from the one who had abandoned them. You're really serious about this? Daniel asked quietly, voice low, almost incredulous. I am, he said, locking eyes with him. More serious than I've ever been about anything in my life. Samuel's voice joined in, trembling but curious. And you really won't leave again? I won't, he said firmly, his heart pounding with the weight of his promise. I will stay. I will be here, every day. I will show you, in every action, that I am here for you. Not for appearances, not for ego, for you. The mother watched silently, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She had witnessed his transformation, these small yet profound acts that carried more meaning than any grand gesture could. The children's cautious engagement, their slow softening, was proof that he was beginning to bridge the gap between absence and presence, between failure and redemption. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the playground in a golden glow, he felt a mixture of exhaustion, hope, and profound humility. The road ahead was still uncertain, filled with potential missteps and setbacks, But for the first time, he sensed that he had taken a real step toward reclaiming the trust and love of the family he had lost. Sophia finally tossed the ball back to him, a small smile flickering on her lips. "Okay, one more round," she said softly. He caught it, a surge of emotion rising in his chest, and nodded. "One more round. As many as you want." "Move!" he shouted, his voice low but commanding, and in the same instant he sprinted forward. Daniel's eyes widened. "Father!" he yelled, panic in his voice. Samuel clutched Sophia, their hands intertwining in fear. "He's going to hit us." Without hesitation, he threw himself in front of them, his arms outstretched, body positioning himself as a shield. The bicyclist slammed into him, a violent impact that knocked the wind out of him, and he hit the ground hard, the breath escaping in a painful whoosh. But the children were safe, huddled together behind him, their mother's gasp of relief echoing in the chaos. "Are you okay?" the mother cried, rushing forward, kneeling beside him. He coughed, grimacing, feeling pain lancing through his side and leg, but the focus was entirely on them. "I'm fine," he panted, forcing himself upright. "Everyone safe?" Daniel, trembling, nodded rapidly. "We're okay, thanks to you." Samuel's small voice was shaking. You saved us?" Sophia stepped forward, her small hand brushing his arm, eyes wide and unguarded for the first time. "Thank you, Father," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible, but it carried a weight that pierced him deeper than any gratitude could. The mother's eyes filled with tears, but they were not just tears of relief. They were acknowledgement. She had seen him act, not just with words or promises, but with immediate, unhesitating courage. "You risked yourself," she said quietly, voice choked. "You could have been seriously hurt." "I don't care about me," he said, his voice strained but steady. "I care about them, always them. I promised I wouldn't leave and I won't. Not again." Daniel's eyes glistened. "You really mean it?" "Yes," he said firmly, clutching his side where the pain throbbed. "I've never been more serious in my life. Nothing else matters if I don't protect you, if I don't prove I can be here for you." Samuel, still holding tightly to his sister, whispered, I believe you." Sophia's small hand lingered on his arm, and for the first time, he allowed himself a fragile hope to take root. The mother, though still wary, exhaled slowly. "Actions like this, they speak louder than anything you could have said before," she murmured, her tone carrying a reluctant admiration. He glanced at the children, each of their faces etched with relief, fear, and a flicker of respect. This was the first moment where he felt that trust could be more than a fragile promise. It could grow slowly through moments of courage and care. The crowd around them had stopped, whispers and murmurs spreading, but he paid no attention. Nothing else existed except the family in front of him, the beating hearts he had vowed to protect. The bicyclist, embarrassed and apologetic, helped himself up. I didn't see you. I'm so sorry." The mother gave him a sharp look. "Make sure you watch where you're going," she said firmly, then turned back to him. You really did this for them, didn't you?" He nodded, exhaustion and emotion mingling in his chest. "I did, and I will keep doing it. Every time, every day. I'm here now. I'm staying here." Daniel stepped closer, still guarded but his voice softer. You really care about us, not just words." "No," he said, shaking his head slowly, a fierce sincerity in his eyes. "Not just words. I will show you. In every step I take, in every choice I make, I will show you." Samuel, still holding Sophia, whispered, "Thank you for protecting us." Sophia, small but firm, added, "We're watching. Don't ever leave us." "I won't," he said, his voice unwavering despite the pain and the adrenaline still pumping through him. "I promise I won't leave. Not now. Not ever. You are my family, and I will do everything to protect you, to be with you, to earn your trust. Every day, if I have to." The mother finally allowed herself a small smile, cautious but genuine. This is a start, a real start. He looked at the children, each one slowly relaxing, the protective barrier between them softening just enough for a tiny spark of connection to shine through. He realized that the road ahead was still long, filled with tests, doubts, and challenges. But for the first time, he had proven, not with words, but with decisive action, that he could be the man they needed. The children scattered into the living room, but the tension remained, invisible threads of caution connecting them to each other and to him. Daniel perched on the edge of the sofa, his eyes sharp, scanning every movement. Samuel hovered near his mother's side, eyes wary, fingers twining with Sophia's small hand. And Sophia, she approached him slowly, a small tentative step that made his heart ache with both hope and fear. Do you really want to stay?" she asked quietly, her voice small but precise, as if testing the water before stepping in fully. He knelt to meet her gaze, careful not to loom over her, careful not to intimidate. "Yes," he said softly, voice trembling despite the effort to control it. "I want to be here, not for appearances, not for forgiveness. I want to be here for you, every day in every way I can." Her eyes flickered toward her mother, then back at him. "And you won't leave, not like before?" "I won't," he promised, feeling a raw, unshakable truth in his own words. "I know I hurt you. I know I caused fear, anger, and doubt. But I will never leave again. I swear it. Not now. Not ever." Daniel's voice cut through, sharp and accusatory. "Words are cheap. How do we know you really mean it? How do we know this isn't just another lie?" He took a slow breath, feeling the familiar weight of shame press down. "You don't," he admitted quietly. "You can't know. You can only watch, only feel, only judge me by what I do. And that's fine. I accept that. I only ask for the chance to show you, in every small act, that I am here to stay, and that I will protect you no matter what." Samuel's small voice, still trembling but growing steadier, whispered, "Even when we're mad at you, even when you're mad at me," he said softly, eyes glistening. "Even then, I will not turn away. I will not leave. I will stay." The mother observed quietly, weighing each word, each movement, the tension in her chest unrelenting but subtly easing. "This is going to take time," she said, voice firm yet tinged with relief. "You have to prove it. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. And the children will test you. They will push you, challenge you, and maybe even try to break you. You have to be ready." "I am," he said immediately, with a resolve that surprised even him. "I am ready for every test, every challenge, every day. I will endure it all if it means being part of their lives, truly part of their lives." Sophia stepped closer, still holding Samuel's hand, and placed her small fingers tentatively on his arm. "Then, maybe we can start," she said softly, almost as a question. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Start what?" "To trust you slowly," Sophia replied quietly. "We're scared, but maybe we can try. If you show us you mean it." He nodded, swallowing hard, feeling emotion tighten his throat. "That's all I ask," he said softly. "One day at a time, one moment at a time. That's all I ask." Dinner was prepared quietly, the mother keeping a watchful eye while he sat beside the children. He tried small talk, tentative questions about school, small jokes to coax laughter from them. Each chuckle he earned felt monumental, a tiny brick in the rebuilding of a home he had once destroyed. At one point, Daniel spilled a glass of juice, and his reflex was immediate. He grabbed a napkin, kneeling to clean it up, and gently guided the boy's hand to help. "It's okay," he said softly. "We'll clean it together. Accidents happen." Daniel's eyes widened slightly, and for a brief, fleeting moment, he allowed himself to relax. You really aren't angry?" "No," he said firmly, smiling gently. "Mistakes happen. What matters is how we fix them together." Samuel peeked from behind his mother's shoulder. "You really mean it?" "I do," he said softly, the sincerity palpable. "Every word, Every action I take from now on is for you, for all of you. The evening stretched into quiet moments. Homework, laughter, small disputes, and gentle guidance. Every small interaction was a test, a negotiation of trust, a fragile reconstruction of family bonds. He could feel the children's defenses gradually softening, their skepticism tempered by his consistent presence. The mother finally spoke, softly, almost to herself. Perhaps this is the beginning of something real. If he can endure, if he can be constant, maybe there's hope. He caught her gaze and nodded, eyes glistening with unshed tears. I will endure, he said quietly, voice steady but trembling with emotion. I will not fail them again. Not now. Not ever. Sophia, sensing the sincerity in his voice, whispered, We'll try to see if you mean it. Then, a sharp knock at the door shattered the calm. His heart jumped, a surge of adrenaline hitting him instantly. The children froze, glancing nervously toward him. The mother stiffened, her protective instincts flaring. He rose slowly, careful not to alarm them further, and moved toward the door. Who is it? He called softly, trying to keep his voice steady despite the tension coiling in his chest. A familiar, cold voice replied, dripping with malice. Open up. I know you're there. I've come to take what's mine. His pulse quickened. It was the mistress. She had followed them, had tracked him here, and now she was threatening the fragile sanctuary they had just begun to build. He glanced back at the children, who were clutching each other, eyes wide with fear. Daniel's small hands trembled as he gripped the edge of the couch. Father, what do we do? He whispered, his voice quivering. He knelt in front of them, meeting their eyes, and forced a calm he didn't entirely feel. Stay behind me, he said firmly, placing his hands lightly on Daniel and Sophia's shoulders. No matter what happens, I will protect you. Trust me. I've never meant it more in my life. The mother stepped forward, her eyes flashing with determination. You will not take them. Not here. Not now. Not ever. The door rattled as the mistress slammed against it. You think you can hide from me? This family belongs to me, and I will not be denied. He took a deep breath, the weight of responsibility crashing down on him. He could feel the fear in the children, the protective force radiating from the mother, and the rage simmering in the mistress's voice. And in that moment, he understood something vital. Words alone would not protect them. Only action would. He moved swiftly, unlocking the door and stepping in front of the children and their mother. Enough! He shouted, his voice resonant, filled with authority and resolve. This ends now. You will not hurt them. You will not threaten them. You are leaving. Now. The mistress laughed cruelly, her expression twisted with fury. And what? You think you can stop me? You're just a man who abandoned his family once. What makes you think you have the right to protect them? I have the right because I choose to act, he said, stepping closer, chest tight, eyes blazing with conviction. Because I have failed them before and now I will never fail them again. I am their father, and I will do whatever it takes to keep them safe, to earn their trust, to be the man I should have been. Daniel's voice trembled but carried a sharp edge. Father, don't let her take us. Please, you promised you'd protect us. I promised, he said, kneeling slightly to meet Daniel's gaze. And I will keep that promise, no matter what. Samuel clutched Sophia's hand tightly, whispering, We're scared, Father. She's mean. I know, he said softly, brushing his hand gently over Samuel's. I am scared too, but my fear does not matter. What matters is that I am here with you, and I will not let anyone hurt you. The mistress stepped closer, sneering. You think your presence can intimidate me? You abandoned them. You have no authority here. He held her gaze, feeling the tension and fear coiling in his chest, but refusing to let it control him. Authority is not given by fear or absence. Authority is earned by protection, by love, by action. And I have chosen them. Every day, every moment, I will choose them. You will not win. Not now. Not ever. The mother's eyes filled with tears, but she did not step back. "You hear that? You have no power here," she said firmly. "This family is ours, and he will protect us." Sophia stepped slightly forward, small but resolute, gripping her father's arm. "We trust you," she said softly, voice trembling but steady. We believe you will keep us safe." The mistress froze, surprise flickering across her face. "You trust him?" she spat, her voice cracking with disbelief. "Yes," Daniel said firmly, stepping forward despite his size. "We do, because he is here, and he will protect us. He will not leave. He will not fail us again." Samuel's small voice joined in, shaking but defiant. We believe in you, Father. Always." He felt an overwhelming surge of emotion, a mixture of relief, love, and determination that tightened his chest. "I will protect you," he said softly but with iron resolve. "No matter what, I will not let anyone hurt you. I swear it." The mistress, realizing she could not break their resolve, took a step back, her face twisted with fury and disbelief. This isn't over," she hissed before storming out, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. The children clung to him, their small bodies trembling but safe. The mother exhaled slowly, eyes glistening with tears of relief and pride. You truly mean it," she said softly, voice catching in her throat. "I do," he said, holding them close, feeling the weight of the night and the surge of love that tethered him to them. "I have never meant anything more in my life. I am here and I will stay. Always," Sophia whispered, small but unwavering. We know, Father, and we're not afraid anymore." Daniel and Samuel nodded in agreement, their initial fear giving way to a fragile sense of safety. He held them close, the weight of responsibility and love pressing down on him. And in that quiet, tense moment, he understood the depth of what he had committed to. Protecting them meant more than guarding them from external threats. It meant being present for every fear, every challenge, every fragile step toward trust and family. And he was ready to face it all. The night stretched on, filled with the quiet rhythm of a family cautiously rebuilding itself. Outside, the city continued its endless pulse, but inside, a small victory had been claimed. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "No one will ever hurt them again. Not while I am here. Not ever." He moved quietly, making himself a cup of coffee, careful not to startle them. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery below drifted upward, mingling with the hum of the city waking up. The mother prepared breakfast in the kitchen, and he offered a small nod in acknowledgement, a silent gesture of solidarity. "Father," Daniel said cautiously, his voice breaking the morning calm, You don't have to sit with us every morning. It's not necessary." He smiled gently, leaning against the counter, eyes soft but attentive. "I know," he said quietly, "but I want to. I want to be part of your mornings, your routines, even the small, ordinary things. If you let me, I want to be here, not just in big moments, but in every little moment too." Sophia, glancing up from her small pile of pencils, whispered, "You really mean that?" "I do," he said, moving closer, kneeling to meet her gaze. "I mean it with all my heart. These mornings, these small routines are just as important as anything else. They show me how to be here, fully, with all of you." Samuel, fiddling nervously with the buttons on his shirt, spoke softly. "But what if we mess up? What if we do something wrong? Then we'll fix it together," he said gently, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We'll face mistakes, fears, and accidents together. That's what family does. I won't leave, and I won't let you face anything alone, ever again." Breakfast was quiet at first, the clink of cutlery the only sound as they ate. He tried small conversation, asking about schoolwork, little interests, books they liked. But the children responded minimally, testing his patience, testing whether his presence was truly dependable. Daniel glanced at him suddenly, a spark of challenge in his eyes. If you're really going to stay, you have to do something right now. Something that shows us you mean it. No words, actions. He met the gaze of all three children, feeling the weight of their skepticism and hope pressing against him. He nodded slowly. "All right," he said quietly. "Tell me what I need to do." Sophia shifted slightly, hesitating before speaking. "Help us clean up the mess from yesterday," she said, her voice small but firm. "The toys, the papers. You were supposed to help, but we did it ourselves." He smiled softly, though inwardly he felt a pang of guilt. "You're right," he said, crouching down beside them. "I should have helped. Let's fix it together now." The children exchanged glances, wary but intrigued. Daniel handed him a stack of papers, Samuel gathered scattered pencils, and Sophia began organizing small toys. He followed their lead, careful not to overstep, careful to show respect and cooperation. You're really doing it," Daniel said slowly, his voice tinged with disbelief. "You're actually helping, not just talking." "I am," he said, smiling gently, "because actions speak louder than words. And I want to show you, every day, that I am here for you, that I will be here for you." Hours passed as they worked together, small moments building bridges of trust. Each gesture, each shared laugh over a fallen toy or misplaced paper, strengthened the fragile bond. He could feel the children's initial suspicions softening, their small smiles emerging with increasing frequency. During a brief pause, Sophia looked up at him, eyes wide with cautious hope. "Father, do you think maybe we can play a game later? Together?" "Absolutely," he said, relief and joy mixing in his chest. "We'll play any game you like. And this time, no one leaves, no one is left out. We're together." Samuel, still hesitant, added quietly, "Even if we argue, even then," he said softly, kneeling to their level, "we'll face it together, because being a family isn't about never having disagreements. It's about staying, loving, and protecting each other despite them." The mother watched quietly from the kitchen doorway, a small smile on her lips, observing the careful, painstaking process of connection unfolding. She knew the road ahead was long, filled with testing and challenges, but she could see the beginnings of a real bond forming, a bond built on actions, patience, and unwavering commitment. Later in the afternoon, he helped Daniel solve a particularly tricky puzzle, sat with Samuel as he struggled with math problems, and carefully listened to Sophia's stories, engaging with her imagination without judgment or interruption. Each small interaction became a testament to his commitment, each tiny moment a thread weaving him into the fabric of their lives. By evening, when the city lights flickered on outside, the apartment was filled with laughter and quiet conversation. The children were still cautious, but their hearts had begun to open. He felt a surge of both exhaustion and fulfillment, a complex mixture of relief, love, and determination. He knelt beside them one final time before bed, voice soft but unwavering. "I know it's not easy. I know trust is fragile. But I promise you, I will be here, every day, every moment. And I will prove in every small way that I am here to stay, that I am here to protect you, and that I will never abandon you again." Sophia yawned, resting her head lightly on his arm. We believe you," she whispered. Daniel and Samuel nodded quietly, their small hands brushing his, a tentative but growing connection forming. He held them close, heart swelling, eyes glistening. "Then we begin again," he whispered softly, feeling the weight of the past and the hope of the future intertwine. Together, a sudden ring at the doorbell made his heart skip. He froze for a split second, instincts honed over years of business and survival kicking in. The children looked up, uncertain, eyes wide. Daniel's voice, sharp and anxious, cut the morning calm. "Who is it? You're not going to open it, are you?" He crouched to meet their eyes. "I need to know before I answer," he said calmly but with steel beneath the softness. "Stay close to me, don't move." The mother's hand gripped his arm. "It's probably someone looking for trouble. Don't let them in." He exhaled slowly, then opened the door to reveal a man in a crisp suit, clipboard in hand, a polite smile masking a harder intent. "Good morning, sir. I'm here regarding the children's schooling and custody verification. May I come in?" A wave of unease swept through him. It was a formal visit, likely provoked by the mistress or someone eager to challenge his claim to the children. He stepped back, gesturing for the man to wait. "I need to see some identification first," he said firmly. The children clung to him instinctively. Daniel's small hands pressed against his chest. "Father, they're here to take us?" "No," he said quickly, kneeling and placing a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Not if I can help it. They're here to ask questions. We'll answer properly. But you, stay close to me, all right?" The man's smile remained fixed, but his eyes flickered with awareness of the subtle tension in the room. "Sir, I'm just doing my duty. I have the right to verify information regarding the children's guardianship. Please understand, this is procedural." The mother stepped forward, voice steady but assertive. "We've already provided all necessary documentation. Our family is here. The children are safe, and no one will take them without due cause." He turned to the children, his eyes scanning their small, anxious faces. "You don't need to be afraid. I'm here, and I will not let anyone hurt you or take you away unfairly. Trust me. Always trust me." Sophia's voice trembled slightly. "But what if they still try? Then we face it together," he said firmly, holding her hand. "I